I'm taking a deeper look at the freedom movement in this video. So it says Action for Canada is a grassroots movement. That is definitely untrue. And Tanya Gaw, the founder of Action for Canada, definitely knows that. And I'll tell you another piece of BS that's on this website right here. It says our mission is to protect Canada's rich heritage, which is founded on Judeo-Christian biblical principles, inherited through our British Commonwealth and embedded in the Magna Carta. These principles form our laws and values and are the basis of a system of governance that sets us apart from totalitarian, extremist, and communist regimes, giving Canadians the freedom to believe or not to believe without fear of persecution, oppression, and even death. Yeah, very well written, I'll give you that, but all in all, there is no justice using a system of any sort because, in particular in Canada, the illusion of democracy and our British colonial system, it's essentially just a puppet of the Vatican, and things like voting don't really matter when the results are fixed anyway, and in particular in the justice system, we're looked at as pieces of commodity anyway, and it's a form of contract. The legal system is a form of contract that we're essentially forced into. So no, the systems were not built for us at all, Tanya Gaw, and we can't use them. There's nothing that sets us apart from other nations because this nation is just a corporation. Some of the ties that Action for Canada has in particular, one of them is Act for Canada, but before I even talk about Act for Canada, I just want to say Tanya Gaw is the founder of Action for Canada, as I said, and then you have Valerie Price, who's the co-founder of Action for Canada. Valerie Price is the director of Act for Canada and has been since 2009, and she's an inductee into the Knights of Malta. So there we go, all roads do lead to Rome. And Action for Canada, giving people the illusion that the system is built for you, is terrible because we can't be relying on hopium or false prophets to bring us somewhere when essentially all sides of a narrative are always controlled by central parties and an unseen hand throughout history, and things are always pitted where the illusion of one side versus the other is present. And this is far more deep and complex what we're going through now. And right now I'm going to talk about the Knights of Malta, just a little brief bit of history here. The most important of all military orders, both for the extent of its area and for its duration, it is said to have existed before the Crusades and is not extinct at the present time. During this long career, it has not always borne the same name. Known as the Hospitallers of Jerusalem until 1309, the members were called Knights of Rhodes from 1309 till 1522 and have been called the Knights of Malta since 1530. So I want to also make an important distinction here is that the Knights of Malta are a form of Templars, and Templars are ones who created the many banking practices that are used today. And as well, the Templars are different from the Jesuit order in its entirety. Both are attached to the church, but both are separate orders. And I've covered the Jesuits in other videos. They're more or less thought of as a military order, whereas the Knights of Malta today are more or less thought of for their charity work and, saying with heavy quotations, humanitarian work. So the Sovereign Order of Malta is one of the oldest institutions of Western and Christian civilization. Also just one of the many tentacles of the church, just like the Jesuit order. It doesn't matter if it's labeled as military organization or not, because the Vatican does wage war on the people. A lay religious order of the Catholic Church since 1113 and a subject of international law. The Sovereign Order of Malta has diplomatic relations with over 100 states, the European Union, and permanent observer status. And it is a permanent observer status of the United Nations and is supposedly neutral, impartial, and apolitical. And it's active in 120 countries today, actually. And being that it does have its permanent observer status within the United Nations, it's a member of certain sub-organizations like UNESCO, WHO, and it has delegations or representatives to international organizations like the European Union, like I've said, or even the Red Cross, hence the charity work. And even this organization, the International Institute for the Unification of Private Law, Unidroit, which friends have sent me information on, I need to look into more deeply, but I know that it's built on an Aldobrandini residents, and anybody who watched my All Roads Lead to Rome video, it was that Aldobrandini is one of the 12, 13 main Zoroastrian bloodlines, which roads actually go far deeper than Rome, but I think I'll just have to make a sequel to that video to really explain how they go past Rome, but for now I'll just say they lead to Rome. So, the Order of Malta is signed on to Vision 2050. I'm not going to really go over Vision 2050 in this video, but it's essentially something that's signed on to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. I'm not sure how they're working toward Vision 2050, but I just thought it's worth stating nonetheless, because now you know where Valerie Price of Act for Canada sits and what Tanya Gaw of Action for Canada is actually working for, especially being that Action for Canada is one of the organizations that partners with Rocco Galati, but this website in particular, Canuck Law, has done a hell of a job actually tackling things that Rocco Galati has done, as well as Action for Canada. So I'll let you browse that website, and potentially even, if Canuck Law comments on my videos, hopefully they can even leave some articles about Rocco Galati for you guys. So this is one of the many other aspects of the freedom movement here, this thing called the Academy of Divine Knowledge, led by a fellow known as Sasha Stone, and it carries a lot of big control ops, big names here like David Icke, Del Bigtree, RFK Jr., and as well Patrick King, as I've made a video on here. And it's all old news, but I just want to say that this organization has changed its name to Unity D, and as well we see this overt cube symbolism, which is actually quite the same as the number 4, and the same as the color black. I bring up the number 4 because of Action for Canada, and it all represents being part of a cult of Saturn, we could say, and leads to something very big called the Demiurge, which I'll have to make an entire video about something called the Demiurge. So this is a little small picture of Sasha Stone here, and those are some interesting connections he has. I'm going to go over some of them in a little more depth myself. So this is his LinkedIn page right here. We can see that he is the founder of something called Humanitad. He's also the executive producer of the MDG Awards, which launched at the UN General Assembly on March 17th, 2009. And there are other things about him as well, but first I just want to cover this Humanitad organization that he is a part of. So it says Humanitad is dedicated to inspiring tolerance and goodwill between people of all nations and faiths. It is committed to ushering in a new era of truth, transparency, and right-mindedness, whilst inspiring growth in the spiritual framework within which we function as a species. Okay? Humanitad continues to work with leaders from across all disciplines, nations, and faiths, from heads of state to religious leaders, economists to diplomats, artists to activists. We work toward the implementation and realization of a new earth, which now manifests in accordance to our collective will and in our pursuit of sovereignty, of natural law, and of our highest expression. To this end, Humanitad is dynamically involved in fostering a manifestation of the next great stage in the evolution of humankind. One world, one humanity. Sounds very much like they're very much on board of the New World Order, and I would even go as far as to say possibly the New World Religion, based off what they're alluding to with spirituality and as well ideas of manifestation and some sort of esoteric concepts there. So Unified, or Unified D, which is now what the Academy of Divine Knowledge, this is its new name. And ironically, we see the cube symbolism or Demiurge symbolism here as well, when this organization is called Unified, but D is the 4th letter of the alphabet, so there we go. We see our Saturn symbolism right there. Our goal at Unified is to create a place where we can come together to raise the collective consciousness while preserving and promoting freedom of speech. We knew we needed a change in our world, and we knew we could only do it on a collective level. When we unify our consciousness and put our energy together, we shift our reality in ways that surpass even our wildest dreams. Alright, so they're trying to get us to manifest a new world, essentially. That's from what I gather reading that. They mentioned that Sasha Stone is the founder of something called the International Tribunal for Natural Justice, which launched under multinational observership in June 2015 via a ceremonial seating and ratification ceremony at Westminster Central Hall in London on the 800th anniversary of the signing of the Magna Carta. This new planetary court is committed to the dispensation of natural justice and adherence to the rule of law, if you say so. This is just one of the photos of Sasha Stone here, being that I haven't really shown him quite clearly. He has a very close friend, Ciro Orsini. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but I've mentioned the Orsini family in my All Roads Lead to Rome video, and this is one of the many big bloodlines, just like the Aldobrandini family I mentioned earlier. So, it says Ciro was born on January 1st, 1965 in Naples, Italy, and he is a restaurateur. He does own a restaurant. He moved to London in 1975 and established his pizzeria, Ciro's Pomodoro, in 1978, and there's a lot of locations it's located in, like Italy, England, US, Greece, Ukraine, Romania, France, Monaco, Dubai, India, and China, which all happen to be hotbeds for human trafficking, which is probably just a coincidence. Funny how it's worded here. Alessandro, good job on the article, by the way. And this operation he has expands worldwide, and Ciro is definitely quite a well-connected individual. It says here that a lot of the symbolism used in the International Tribunal of Natural Justice, they use a lot of Vatican symbolism. And as well, the records of Sasha's companies show names for the last 30 years. His friendship is very long and fruitful, and Ciro Orsini and family all appear not only as former members of Sasha's failed rock band, but also as a part of something called Mosaic Federation, which there's a small image for, and the Federation receives a percentage of the International Tribunal for Natural Justice donations. So in essence, money donated by people like you and me goes to Orsini and his criminal enterprise. Ciro Jr. appears as the listed rep for the Ciro Orsini and Armand Assante Children's Fund. So here's the photo of Sasha and Ciro. So that's Ciro and that's Sasha right in the center there. And that's as well a screenshot of the Mosaic Federation showing money transference like I was discussing earlier. And we see that things like the Clinton Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and NXIVM are kind of repeating themselves. Ciro Orsini is involved with casting actors and models in Hollywood and London, which there isn't really anything over the top being involved in that sort of a thing, but things are about to get very dark. So I'm going to suggest that if somebody is watching this with a child, to have the child leave the room. Ciro Orsini is promoted by websites that, sell Ukrainian brides, and the Orsini building in Ukraine not only hosts a pizzeria and a steakhouse, but also a penthouse, which basically hosts nightclubs and the prostitution kind of nightclub, if I'm going to put it bluntly to you. And as well, there's a link that was discovered between Ciro Orsini and something called the Knights of St. Francis, which I'll be discussing in a little bit more depth here. They compare it to Ben Franklin's Hellfire Club, and Ben Franklin's Hellfire Club is one that was a very exclusive fraternity, if you will. And it says here that the history of the Knights of St. Francis dates back to Sir Francis Dashwood, which is who created the Hellfire Club, actually. And the Hellfire Club dates back to the 1700s. It was originally a British secret society designed for high-standing individuals of a certain persuasion. Members included social elite and many famous attendees. So essentially, the purpose of that organization was to have eyes wide shut type of events. And for people that have not seen the movie Eyes Wide Shut, large portions of it were filmed in Rothschild mansions, to my understanding. It has Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, and I guess could best be described as erotica. And there's a lot of masquerade parties and promiscuous type of things depicted. So, all in all here, I just want to go to a little bit of Sir Francis Dashwood and his sort of connection here. So, there's a man named Adam Weishaupt, and this chapter in the 1700s is something I could make entire videos about. But it says, Jesuit taught Adam Weishaupt was a Bavarian Illuminati, Bavaria, Germany, who on May 1st, 1776, in Ingolstadt, Upper Bavaria, with the financial support of the House of Rothschild, founded a German expression of Illuminism. However, the Bavarian seers can be traced back to a 16th century cult of illuminated men called the Roshania in Afghanistan. I don't know if it's best to really describe it as a Muslim cult. I've seen it described as Sufi, and Sufism might be looked at as heresy by Islam, just like how Gnosticism might be looked at as heresy by Christians. So I'm not sure what the best description is to give Roshania for you. But anyway, Weishaupt produced what's called the Law of Fives, like a pentagram. So his original inner circle was structured around the pentagram. The inner circle comprised of 5 men: Weishaupt's friend Colmer, Sir Francis Dashwood, as mentioned, of the Hellfire Club, which is how the Knights of St. Francis actually descends from the Hellfire Club, is what they're basically openly gloating. And Alfonsi, I can't pronounce his name here, but it's how we derive the word sadism. And then this important individual, Mayer Amschel Rothschild, the founder of the powerful banking house of the Rothschild bankers. He was one of the many people within this inner circle, and Weishaupt himself used his wing of the Illuminati to infiltrate and control Freemasonry. So, essentially, Adam Weishaupt was taught by the Jesuits, and people within the order of the Illuminati always reported to someone they did not know, and this is how secrecy was preserved. And this kind of fraternity, in particular, actually, I want to say the Hellfire Club, Sir Francis Dashwood, one particular important member was actually Benjamin Franklin. So, and a lot of prominent American leaders were part of the Hellfire Club. So, all in all, this kind of organization is something that needs to be looked at very closely, because Ciro Orsini is openly bragging about the ties he has, and unfortunately there is no way we can go about bringing these kinds of things down through arms of the system which are created by families like the Orsini family, or by notorious Templar families. Anyway, that's all I want to say. The freedom organizations have much bigger connections, especially to that of the Vatican and the UN. Anyway, take care everyone, thanks for watching.